Edge of Eternities literally changes the game with new mechanics and new ways to play Magic the Gathering. And whether you're into spaceships landing on the planes you love, or you just want to win your pre-release, let's dive into the new mechanics and archetypes that come with this set. Hey, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you checking out the video. Make sure you like, subscribe, do all the things that let the algorithm know that this little YouTube channel is fun to watch, gives you some useful information, and just stick around. All right, let's dive into Edge of Eternities, the set that is now taking the internet by storm now that Final Fantasy is sort of in the rear view. Too expensive for most, and anybody who wants cards probably already have them. So now we're turning to Spacecraft and Space Station in this new in-universe set, Edge of Eternities. Honestly, things are looking pretty good. The spoilers have been fun, and the new mechanics seem like they're going to be pretty powerful. So first and foremost, I'm sure you've heard it already, but now vehicles can be your commander. That means that Shorokai Genesis Engine actually has text on it that doesn't matter anymore, which is pretty funny. But when looking at having Spacecraft Station, that is how you convert these artifacts into creatures. Let's talk about how these actually work. Here's a good example here, Wormwall Sweeper. This is an artifact spacecraft. When it enters, you surveil 2. It costs 2 colorless. Station. This actually has the text on it, but I'm not sure every card will. Station. Tap another creature you control, put a charge counter equal to its power on the spacecraft. Station only is a sorcery. It's an artifact creature at 4+ on its station count. So pretty easy to get online. It gives you surveil 2 for 2, which is already a decent spell. I mean, kind of slow and underpowered, obviously. You can do more for 1 blue, but getting it in colorless, having surveil, not bad. You tap 1 creature that's 4 or more, or 2 creatures, and suddenly you have a 2/2 flyer on the board that let you surveil. Not bad. You can see how stationing effects are going to be a large part of this set. It's basically like crewing a vehicle. You don't have to do it every turn. Once you station something, it remains stationed until that permanent leaves the board or the game ends. Now, this is what I'm very excited to talk about, Warp. I think decks built out of the Warp mechanic are going to be a blast. Right here, the example they give is Starfield Shepherd. It's a creature angel with flying. When this creature enters, search your library for a basic plains card or a creature with mana value 1 or less. Reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. That is basically a low-powered enchantment or sorcery that you can cast. This can be for 5, a 3/2 with flying that has that ability, or you can warp it out. Warp is a new ability that lets cards travel to the battlefield faster than expected. So you can pay 1 and a white. You may cast this card from your hand for its warp cost. Exile this creature at the beginning of your next end step. Then you may cast it from exile on a later turn. So you can get the quick hit of being able to search your library for a basic land card or a creature with 1 or less and put it on the battlefield. You want to go grab your Esper Sentinel for a total investment of 2 white and 1 colorless. You can get your Esper Sentinel on the battlefield and still have the option to later get a 3/2 flyer and do it again. And this time it'll be persistent and remain on the board. Warp is so much fun in my mind, and I'm sure a lot of you tinkerers out there have noticed the at your next end step portion of this mechanic. At your next end step doesn't always have to be a sure thing. Let's go over a few cards that can make it so you skip your end step and maybe have these creatures stay out for cheating them out at least for a turn or 2. Time Stop is an example, costs 4 colorless and 2 blue in order to be able to skip your end step. Discontinuity, same thing. Costs 3 and 3 blue. Unfortunately, these are 2 blue-white strategies if you're going to use this card specifically, but I imagine we're going to see many, many cards with the Warp ability. We can also look at Glorious End. That's 2 in a red. It just ends the turn right there. I think that's an excellent selection to have a little bit of Boros tomfoolery with this Warp mechanic. And then look, you can even build a whole deck out of it with Obeka as your commander if you're playing commander, or build a whole strategy within a 60-card constructed format with Warp at the heart and a bunch of different spells like Glorious End that allow you just to end your turn over and over again with more reliability to have this be a real strategy to rush out creatures, do damage, and get the enchantments fast that are undercosted with this Warp mechanic. The only problem with Obeka is that we're dealing with blue, black, red, so you're not going to have access to every spell, including this one. But looking at other Warp mechanics that I think are exciting, Exalted Sunborn. This is the showcase version. Already there's some excitement around it, but we can always ignore pre-release prices as being absolute nonsense. When looking at Exalted Sunborn, it's able to, for 3 and 2 white, it's a flying lifelinker 4/5. If 1 or more token would be created under your control, twice that many tokens are created instead. So essentially, we have ourselves an Anointed Procession for 1 more colorless mana on a 4/5 flying lifelinker body, which is insane. Talk about pushing the power here. But if you have a turn where you're about to make a ton of tokens and you have 1 colorless and 1 white, well, guess what? You can cheat out an early Anointed Procession effect on this creature with a 1 and a white. The modularity of it, the versatility of it is so exciting. I love token decks. And I think this card particularly is a great example of how we can break the warp mechanic and get absolute early value out of what are typically high-costed spells that wait until mid to late game. For an example here, comparing this to other token doublers within the color, we have Mondrak Glory Dominus, a good card, but not nearly as good as Exalted Sunborn. So then we move to other cards like Odra Tak. This is a token tripler, but it's going to cost you 4 colorless and 2 white to get it on the board. If you're about to have a crazy turn, this is going to give you outstripped value just to have this come in to quickly get your token doubler, and then it sits on the board exiled, safe, ready for you to cast it again when you have the mana and you want to continue your token doubling strategy. You can't do that with Odra Tak, although there is the benefit of Odra Tak continually coming back after it dies. It converts to a land and it will come back. Another direct analog, already mentioned, Anointed Procession, 3 colorless and a white to get your token doubler in an enchantment. And then we have Elspeth, recently printed in Dragonstorm Tarkir. We have Elspeth the Storm. We're looking at 3 colorless and 2 white in order to cast Elspeth and get your token doubling on a Planeswalker body. So they're giving us more ways to build a big board with token doubling. Now, you combine the ability to double your tokens with the new stationing mechanic, and suddenly this becomes a pretty potent combination that Edge of Eternities is clearly pushing us toward. I'm very excited for the warp mechanic. I'm going to definitely build a commander out of it, and I hope they give us a legendary creature with more color options than just Obeka. I would love to see more commanders that can lead into this warp mechanic. Even better, ones that end the turn, so then you can get this mechanic twice undercosted simply by ending your turn before end step and keeping these ridiculous permanents on the board faster than they would be otherwise allowed. Now, these are the kinds of cards I'm really interested to talk about. Planets. So you can also station planets, right? So you can station stations, and you can also station planets. Get excited for this new brave world of Magic the Gathering in space. There's no change in having big airfaring vehicles in Magic the Gathering, and we know that there are cosmic horrors out there in space. So having us actually travel to space and go from planet to planet, I don't think is that off theme. And I do think this is a little better than Thunder Junction. They're not just cowboys now. It's better than Duskmorn. We're not just in a 90s or 80s horror movie. This is, I think, a better match for Magic's ethos. And I think that's why people are getting excited. Like Dragonstorm Tarkir, people were excited to be back on a plane they were familiar with, but at the end of the day, it was still just dragons. We've seen it before. Now we have something completely different, completely new, and not to mention the return of Galaxy Foils, which I think collectors and players both think are cool. Let's just see how hard it is to actually pull them before we get too excited. So back to the planets. Earthos, Titanic God Core. It's a land planet. This land enters tapped. Kind of stinks. I hate when lands enter tapped, but let's read on and see if it's worthwhile. You can tap it out of blue. You can station it for 12, which in a blue deck, depending on what style you're playing, could be easy or hard. And then once you get it stationed, you can pay 1 blue and then tap and add blue for each artifact you control. This is basically a Tolarian Academy, but with many, many more steps. In comparison, 3 Tree City, which is essentially Gaia's Cradle with many more steps, has fewer steps than this to get online. Now, I'd say it's much easier to get more artifacts on board than Creature. If you want to play a Marshmallow-style zero-cost artifact deck, it can be very powerful, and that's why Tolarian Academy, of course, is banned. But in getting something like this, you have the ability to access the power of Tolarian Academy mid-game by having it have this 12-station cost threshold. It makes sure that the game can't happen too fast. I think this is a clear trend that's been enforced by Commander more so than any other format because they want to ensure that people get a chance to let their decks cook, get to turn 3, turn 4, do your thing before your friend wins out of nowhere. That's why certain cards that are so fast, including Mana Crypt, were banned. It was a clear ideological shift in what the Commander landscape should look like. Now, is this going to be good in other formats, like Standard or Modern? Only time will tell. I can see it being good in certain decks, but now that we've moved out of that ethos in Modern, we're into a different style of play, and maybe we'll see more strategies that can take advantage of a land like this. But either way, I'm excited by this. I think it's cool, and I think the art is amazing. So, planets are the other new archetype we have. I'm hoping there's a few that come in untapped, but we'll have to wait and see. Void is the next mechanic for us to talk about here. Looking at the exemplar here, Tragic Trajectory. It's 1 black, a sorcery. Target creature gets -2/-2 until the end of turn. Void. This creature gets -10/-10 until end of turn. Instead, if a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn, or a spell was warped this turn. So I can see Void happening very often, especially in Draft and other formats that revolve around this set specifically. It's basically Boast, which was if a creature died this turn, you're able to get that ability. A lot harder to trigger. But here with Void, you pay a treasure token, great. Void's active. You crack a food token, boom, Void's active. Clue, any token, any permanent leaving the battlefield, including through death or exile, this is activated. Void feels like you can activate it with very little effort with almost any kind of gameplay style. And I can see Void being a really powerful mechanic, especially for a 1 cost, to get -10/-10 in any artifact deck that's going to be cracking treasure tokens to cast their spells. So we have another example of Void here with Insatiable Skittermaw. It's a creature, insect horror, cost 2 and a black, menace. Void, when activated, at the beginning of your end step, if a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn, or a spell was warped this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. What's cool is this is going to be, again, an end step trigger that allows you to derive repeat benefit from a creature already on the battlefield. It's basically rephrasing death triggers. It's rephrasing other triggers that we've had before, where if an artifact leaves the battlefield, or if a creature dies this turn, do X, just like Ravenous Squirrel. Whenever a creature dies, this thing gets +1/+1. That's essentially what's happening here, but it increases the times in which it turns on by having it be any permanent leaving the board. So I think it's exciting. I think Void is also a great mechanic that we're going to see activated a lot more than mechanics like it in the past that were more specialized and more niche. Finally, we move to lander tokens. They use the example here with the Galactic Wayfarer. 2 and a green, a creature, human scout. When this creature enters, create a lander token. It's an artifact with tap 2, sacrifice this token, search your library for a basic land card, put it on the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. It's ramp on a token. I can see this being very powerful in many Simic strategies or just straight up green strategies in the future. So kind of fun. I think it's a good idea. Ramp is always a good thing, especially in colors that want it. So I can see this being an attractive mechanic for many people. Not to mention, it is a token. So with all the new token doubling stuff coming in, especially like what is possible with Exalted Sunborn, and suddenly you see how this game is speeding up again, despite everybody's intentions to slow it down. I prefer a fast game, and I think Edge of Eternities is only going to make more exciting gameplay after its release, and these cards start getting integrated into more classic mainstay decks in all formats. So that's a summary of the new mechanics and the new archetypes coming out in Edge of Eternities. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments below. Are you excited to build around any of these mechanics? Do any of them really stick out to you as being exciting and something you want to build around? I tell you what, I've been excited for a new mechanic like I have been for Warp in a long time. I see a lot of fun ways to break it, and all those cards in Magic's history that let you end the turn, I see getting popular real fast as we try and cheese the system into making these things stick around earlier than they should for this undercosted value. Well, hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, check out my market analysis of what Spider-Man is doing to Magic the Gathering in comparison to other in-universe sets, especially in the wake of Final Fantasy's outrageous success and price points, or you can look here and check out my video just opening some boxes and having fun. Well, I'm the Nerdy Attorney. Thanks for stopping by, and court is adjourned.